Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and welcome back to the Labyrinth. It is time that we conclude the tale of the star-crossed lovers with Act 5 of Romeo and Juliet. Oh, uh, if you who if you weren't here last time, basically what happened, in just a brief recap, Juliet is presumed dead. And she's not really dead, but she took a potion given to her by the friar to make it seem like she died, so she can get out of marrying Paris. And so the friar has sent someone to tell Romeo of the plan, and so Romeo is going to swoop in and grab Juliet, and they're going to run off to Mantua and live happily ever after. In theory, but let's see how that works out for them. Starting with scene one here. So the synopsis is that Romeo's man Balthazar arrives in Mantua with news of Juliet's death. Romeo sends him to hire horses for their immediate return to Verona. Romeo then buys poison so that he can join Juliet in death in the Capulets' burial vault. Oops. But let's get right into it. For those of you who have seen these before, or if you've seen the last four acts, pretty much I'm going to be saying the character and then reading off what they have said. And this one is like the shortest. It's technically of the five acts because it is only three scenes, but the last one is kind of lengthy. Plus, this is the big apex of the story. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Enter Romeo, and Romeo says, "If I may trust the flattering truth of sleep, my dreams presage, or presage, it might be presage, I'm not sure, but my dreams presage some joyful news at hand. My bosom's lord sits lightly in his throne, and all this day an unaccustomed spirit lifts me above the ground with cheerful thoughts. I dreamt my lady came and found me dead. Strange dream that gives a dead man leave to think, and breathes such life with kisses in my lips, that I revived and was an emperor. And ah me, how sweet is love itself possessed, when but love's shadows are so rich in joy." And then enter Romeo's man, Balthazar, in riding boots. "News from Verona. How now, Balthazar? Dost thou not bring me letters from the friar? How doth my lady? Is my father well? How doth my Juliet? That I ask again, for nothing can be ill if she be well." And Balthazar says, "Then she is well, and nothing can be ill. Her body sleeps in Capel's monuments, and her immortal part with angels' lives. I saw her laid low in her kindred's vault, and presently took post to tell it you. Oh, pardon in me for bringing these ill news, since you did leave it for my office, sir." And Romeo says, "Is it e'en so? Deny, you stars. Thou knowest my lodging. Get me ink and paper, and hire post horses. I will hence tonight." And Balthazar says, "I do beseech you, sir, have patience. Your looks are pale and wild, and do import some misadventure." And Romeo says, "Tush, thou art deceived. Leave me, and do the thing I bid thee do. Hast thou no letters to me from the friar?" And Balthazar says, "No, my good lord." And Romeo says, "No matter, get thee gone, and hire those horses. I will be with thee straight." And Balthazar exits, and Romeo continues saying, "Well, Juliet, I will lie with thee tonight. Let's see for means. O mischief, thou art swift to enter in the thoughts of desperate men. I do remember an apothecary, and hereabouts he dwells, which late I noted in tattered weeds, with overwhelming brows, culling of simples, meager were his looks. Sharp misery had worn him to the bones, and in his needy shop a tortoise hung, an alligator stuffed, and other skins of ill-shaped fishes, and about his shelves a beggarly account of empty boxes, green earthen pots, bladders, and musty seeds, remnants of packthread, and old cakes of roses, were thinly scattered to make up a show. Holding this penury to myself, I said, and if a man did need a poison now, whose sale is present death in Mantua, well, here lives as a caitiff wretch would sell it him. Oh, the same thought did it but forerun my need, and this same needy man must sell it to me. Must sell it me. As I remember, this should be the house. Being holiday, the beggar's shop is shut. What ho, apothecary, and enter apothecary. And the apothecary says, "Who calls so loud?" I think I'm pronouncing apothecary right. Probably not, but hopefully I am. And Romeo says, "Come hither, man. I see that thou art poor." And he offers money, saying, "Hold, there is 40 ducats. Let me have a dram of poison, such soon speeding gear as will disperse itself through all the veins, and that the life-weary taker may fall dead, and that the trunk may be discharged of breath, and as violently as hasty powder fired doth hurry from the fatal cannon's womb." And the apothecary says, "Such mortal drugs I have, but Mantua's law is death to any he that utters them." And Romeo says, "Art thou so bare and full of wretchedness, and fearest to die? Famine is in thy cheeks, need and oppression straight starveth in thy eyes, contempt and beggary hangs upon thy back. The world is not thy friend, nor the world's law. The world affords no law to make thee rich. Then be not poor, but break it, and take this." And the apothecary says, "My poverty, but not my will, consents." And Romeo says, "I pay thy poverty, and not thy will." And the apothecary, giving him the poison, then says, "Put this in any liquid thing you will, and drink it off. And if you had the strength of 20 men, it would dispatch you straight." And Romeo, handing him the money, says, "There is thy gold, worse poison to men's souls, doing more murder in this loathsome world than these poor compounds that thou mayst not sell. I sell thee poison, thou hast sold me none. Farewell, buy food, and get thyself in flesh." And the apothecary exits. Romeo continues, says, "Come, cordial and not poison, go with me to Juliet's grave, for there I must use thee." And he exits. It's so it's gonna be explored a little bit more in the next scene, but yeah. So Romeo gets news of Juliet's death, and now decides he will unalive himself to be with Juliet. Yeah, so he's off to Juliet's grave to go and do that. He buys the poison from the apothecary. And I guess the apothecary is kind of, I guess, almost like an alchemist, I guess, but has the poison and will use it to exist no longer, unfortunately. But nevertheless, here we are in scene 2. And the synopsis here is that Friar John enters, bringing with him the letter that he was to have delivered to Romeo. He tells why he was unable to deliver the letter. Friar Lawrence anxiously goes to the tomb to be there when Juliet comes out of her trance. And then enter Friar John, and Friar John says, "Holy Franciscan friar, brother, ho." And then enter Friar Lawrence, and Friar Lawrence says, "This same should be the voice of Friar John. Welcome from Mantua. What says Romeo? Or, if his mind be writ, give me his letter." And Friar John says, "Going to find a barefoot brother out, one of our order, to associate me. Here in the city visiting the sick, and finding him, the searchers of the town, suspecting that we both were in a house where the infectious pestilence did reign, sealed up the doors and would not let us forth, so that my speed to Mantua there was stayed." And Friar Lawrence says, "Who bare my letter then to Romeo?" And Friar John says, "I could not send it. Here it is again." And he returns the letter. And he says, "Nor get a messenger to bring it thee, so fearful were they of infection." And Friar Lawrence says, "Unhappy fortune, by my brotherhood, the letter was not nice but full of charge, of dear import, and the neglecting it may do much danger. Friar John, go hence, get me an iron crow and bring it straight unto my cell." And Friar John says, "Brother, I'll go and bring it thee." And he exits. And Friar Lawrence says, "Now must I to the monument alone. Within these 3 hours will fair Juliet awake. She will beshrew me much that Romeo hath had no notice of these accidents. But I will write again to Mantua, and keep her at my cell till Romeo come. Poor living corse, closed in a dead man's tomb." And he exits. It's so, again, I know I kind of made the joke already in the last scene, but it bears repeating. Oops. And I get it. Letter delivering was slow back then because obviously no vehicles and stuff. But at the same time, you probably should have gotten that letter to him first before he left. And Friar John says he wasn't able to because there was, I guess, disease in the town, but also that he missed Romeo. So he was unable to. So Friar Lawrence is now pretty much in panic mode. Like, oh crap, he didn't get the letter. All right, so I gotta head now to the tomb and see if I can intercept Juliet at least, or maybe like if Romeo's on his way there, like maybe stop him before he does what he's going to do. Who will Friar Lawrence get there in time? Let's find out. And not just the final scene, but not just the final scene in Act 5, but the final scene in this play, that being Scene 3 here. And the synopsis here is that Paris visits Juliet's tomb, and when Romeo arrives, challenges him. Romeo and Paris fight, and Paris is killed. Romeo, in the tomb, takes poison, dying as he kisses Juliet. As Friar Lawrence enters the tomb, Juliet awakes to find Romeo lying dead. Frightened by a noise, the friar flees the tomb. Juliet kills herself with Romeo's dagger. Alerted by Paris's page, the watch arrives and finds the bodies. When the prince, the Capulets, and Montague arrive, Friar Lawrence gives an account of the marriage of Romeo and Juliet. Their deaths lead Montague and Capulet to declare that the family's hostility is at an end. And so enter Paris and his page. And Paris says, "Give me thy torch, boy, hence and stand aloof, yet put it out, for I would not be seen. Under yon yew trees lay thee all along, holding thy ear close to the hollow ground, so shall no foot upon the churchyard tread, being loose unfirm, with digging up of graves. But thou shalt hear it. Whistle then to me, as signal that thou hearest something approach. Give me those flowers. Do as I bid thee. Go." And the page aside says, "I am almost afraid to stand alone here in the churchyard, yet I will adventure." And he moves away from Paris. And Paris, scattering the flowers, says, "Sweet flower, with flowers thy bridal bed I strew. Oh woe, thy canopy is dust and stones, which with sweet water nightly I will do, or wanting that, with tears distilled by moans, the obesques that for I thee will keep, nightly shall be to strew thy grave and weep." And page whistles. And Harris continues saying, "The boy gives warning something doth approach. What cursed foot wanders this way tonight, to cross my obesques and true love's right? What, with a torch, muffle me, knight, awhile." And he steps aside, and then enter Romeo and Balthazar. And Romeo says, "Give me that mattock and the wrenching iron. Hold, take this letter. Early in the morning, see thou deliver it to my lord and father. Give me the light. Upon thy life I charge thee. Whate'er thou hearest or seest, stand all aloof, and do not interrupt me in my course. Why I descend into this bed of death is partly to behold my lady's face, but chiefly to take thence from her dead finger a precious ring, a ring that I must use in dear employment. Therefore hence, be gone. But if thou, jealous, dost return to pry in what I farther shall intend to do, by heaven I will tear thee joint by joint, and strew this hungry churchyard with thy limbs. The time and my intents are savage wild, more fierce and more inexorable far than empty tigers or the roaring sea." And Balthazar says, "I will be gone, sir, and not trouble you." And Romeo says, "So shalt thou show me friendship. Take thou that." And giving money, he gives money to Balthazar, says, "Live and be prosperous, and farewell, good fellow." And Balthazar sighs, says, "For all this same, I'll hide me hereabout. His looks I fear, and his intents I doubt." And he steps aside. And Romeo, as he's beginning to force open the tomb, says, "Thou detestable maw, thou womb of death, hath gorged with the dearest morsel of the earth. Thus I enforce thy rotten jaws to open, and in despite I'll cram thee with more food." And Paris says, "This is that banished haughty Montague that murdered my love's cousin, with which grief is supposed the fair creature died, and here is come to do some villainous shame to the dead bodies. I will apprehend him." And Paris steps forward and says, "Stop thy unhallowed toil, vile Montague. Can vengeance be pursued further than death? Condemned villain, I do apprehend thee. Obey and go with me, for thou must die." And Romeo says, "I must indeed, and therefore came I hither. Good, gentle youth, tempt not a desperate man. Fly hence and leave me. Think upon these gone. Let them affright thee. I beseech you. I beseech thee, youth. Put not another sin upon my head, by urging me to fury. Oh, be gone. By heaven, I love thee better than myself, for I come hither armed against myself. Stay not, be gone. Live and hereafter say, a madman's mercy bid thee run away. And Paris, I should say, says, I do defy thy combination, and apprehend thee for a felon here. And Romeo says, Wilt thou provoke me? Then have at thee, boy. And they draw and fight. And Page says, O Lord, they fight. I will go call the watch. And he exits. And Paris says, I am slain. If thou be merciful, open the tomb, lay me with Juliet. And he dies. And Romeo says, In faith I will. Let me pursue this face. Mercutio's kinsman, noble county Paris. What said my man when my betossed soul did not attend him as we rode? I think he told me Paris should have married Juliet. Said he not so? Or did I dream it so? Or am I mad, hearing him talk of Juliet, to think it was so? Oh, give me thy hand, one writ with me in sour misfortune's book. I'll bury thee in a triumphant grave. And he opens the tomb and says, A grave? Oh no, a lantern. A lantern, slaughtered youth. He says, A grave? Oh no, a lantern, slaughtered youth. For here lies Juliet, and her beauty makes this vault a feasting presence full of light. Death, lie thou there, by a dead man interred, I should say. And he lays Paris in the tomb. And then he continues saying, How oft when men are at the point of death, have they been merry, which their keepers call a lightning before death. Oh, how may I call this lightning? Oh, my love, my wife, death, that hath sucked the honey of thy breath, hath had no power yet upon thy beauty. Thou art not conquered, beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks, and death's pale flag is not advanced there. Tybalt, liest thou there in thy bloody sheets? Oh, what more favour can I do to thee, than with that hand that cut thy youth in twain, to sunder his that was thine enemy? Forgive me, cousin. Ah, dear Juliet, why art thou yet so fair? Shall I believe that unsubstantial death is amorous, and that the lean, abhorred monster keeps thee here in dark to be his paramour? For fear of that I still will stay with thee, and never from this palace of dim night I depart again. Here will I remain, with worms that are thy chambermaids. Oh, here will I set up my everlasting rest, and shake the yoke of inauspicious stars from this world-wearied flesh. Eyes, look your last. Arms, take your last embrace. And lips, oh you, the doors of breath, seal with a righteous kiss, a dateless bargain to engrossing death. And he kisses Juliet. Come, bitter conduct, come, unsavory guide. Thou desperate pilot, now at once run on. The dashing rocks thy sea-sick, wary bark. Here's to my love. And drinking, so he's drinking the poison. And he says, Oh, true apothecary, thy drugs are quick. Thus with a kiss I die. And he dies. And then enter Friar Lawrence with the lantern, crow, and spade. And Friar Lawrence says, As Saint Francis be my speed, how oft tonight have my old feet stumbled at graves? Who's there? And Balthazar says, Here's one, a friend, and one that knows you well. And Friar Lawrence says, Bliss be upon you. Tell me, good my friend, and what torch is yon that vainly lends its light to grubs and eyeless skulls? As I discern, it burneth in the Capitol's monument. And Balthazar says, It doth so, holy sir, and there's my master, one that you love. And Friar Lawrence says, Who is it? And Balthazar says, Romeo. And Friar Lawrence says, How long hath he been there? And Balthazar says, Full half an hour. And Friar Lawrence says, Go with me to the vault. And Balthazar says, I dare not, sir. My master knows not, but I am gone hence, and fearfully did menace me with death, if I did stay to look on his intents. And Friar Lawrence says, Stay then, I'll go alone. Fear comes upon me. Oh, much I fear some ill unthrifty thing. And Balthazar says, As I did sleep under this yew tree here, I dreamt my master and another fought, and that my master slew him. And Friar Lawrence says, as he's moving toward the tomb, he says, Romeo! Alack, alack, what blood is this which stains the stony entrance of this sepulchre? I think that's how it's pronounced, sepulchre. What means these maskless and gory swords to lie discolored by this place of peace? Romeo, O pale, who else? What, Paris too, and steeped in blood? Ah, what an unkind hour is guilty of this lamentable chance. The lady stirs, and Juliet says, Oh, comfortable friar, where is my lord? I do remember well where I should be, and there I am. Where's my Romeo? And Friar Lawrence says, I hear some noise. Lady, come from that nest of death, contagion, and unnatural sleep. A greater power that we can contradict hath thwarted our intentions. Come, come away. Thy husband in thy bosom there lies dead, and Paris too. Come, I'll dispose of thee among a sisterhood of holy nuns, and stay not to question, for the watch is coming. Go, go, come, go, good Juliet. I dare no longer stay. And Juliet says, Go, get thee hence, for I will not away. And he exits. And Juliet says, What's here? A cup closed in my true love's hand. Poison, I see, hath been his timeless end. O churl, drunk all, and left no friendly drop to help me after. I will kiss thy lips. Happily some poison yet doth hang on them, to make me die with a restorative. And she kisses him, and she says, Thy lips are warm. And enter Paris's page and watch, and the first watch says, Lead, boy, which way? And Juliet says, Yea, noise, then I'll be brief. O happy dagger, this is thy sheath, there rust, and let me die. And she takes Romeo's dagger, stabs herself, and dies. And Page says, This is the place where haste there where the torch doth burn. And the first watch says, The ground is bloody. Search about the churchyard. Go, some of you, whoe'er you find, attach. And some watchmen exit. And the first watch, continues saying, Pitiful sight. Here lies the county slain, and Juliet bleeding, warm and newly dead, who here hath lain in this 2 days buried. Go, tell the prince, run to the Capulets, raise up the Montagues, some others search, and the others exit. And he continues saying, We see the ground whereon these woes who lie, but the true ground of all these piteous woes we cannot without circumstance descry. And then enter the watchman with Romeo's man, Balthazar. And the second watch says, Here's Romeo's man. We found him in the churchyard. And the first watch says, Hold him in safety till the prince come hither. And then enter Friar Lawrence and another watchman. And the third watch says, Here's a friar that trembles, sighs, and weeps. We took this mattock and this spade from him, as he was coming from this churchyard side. And the first watch says, A great suspicion. Stay the friar too. And then enter the prince with the attendants. And the prince says, What misadventure so early up, that calls our person from our morning rest? And enter Capulet and Lady Capulet. And Capulet says, What should it be that is so shrieked abroad? And Lady Capulet says, Oh, the people in the street cry Romeo, some Juliet, and some Paris, and all run with open outcry toward our monuments. And the prince says, What fear is the hiss which startles in our ears? And the first watch says, Sovereign, here lies the county Paris slain, and Romeo dead, I should say, and Juliet dead before, warm and newly killed. And the prince says, Search, seek, and know how this foul murder comes. And the first watch says, Here is a friar, and slaughtered Romeo's man, and with instruments upon them fit to open these dead men's tombs. And Capulet says, O heavens, O wife, look how our daughter bleeds. This dagger hath misdaden, for, lo, his house is empty on the back of Montague, and it missheathed in my daughter's bosom. And Lady Capulet says, O me, this sight of death is as a bell that warns my old age to a sepulchre. And enter Montague. And the prince says, Come, Montague, for thou art early up, to see thy son and heir now early down. And Montague says, Alas, my liege, my wife is dead tonight. A grief of my son's exile has stopped her breath. What further woe conspires against mine age? And the prince says, Look, and thou shalt see. And Montague, seeing Romeo dead, says, O thou untaught, what manner is in this, to press before thy father to a grave? And Prince says, Seal up the mouth of outrage for a while, till we can clear these ambiguities, and know their spring, their head, their true descent, and then will I be general of your woes, and heed you even to death. Meantime forbear, and let mischance be slave to patience. Bring forth the parties of suspicion. And Friar Lawrence says, I am the greatest, able to do least, yet most suspected, as the time and place doth make against me of this direful murder. And here I stand, both to impeach and purge, myself condemned and myself excused. And the prince says, Then say at once what thou dost know in this. And Friar Lawrence says, I will be brief, for my short date of breath is not so long as is a tedious tale. Romeo, there dead, was husband to that Juliet, and she, there dead, that Romeo's faithful wife. wife. I married them, and their stolen marriage day was Tybalt's doomsday, whose untimely death banished the new-made bridegroom from the city, for whom, and not for Tybalt, Juliet pined. You, to remove that siege of grief from her, betrothed and would have married her perforce, to county Paris. Then comes she to me, and with wild looks bid me devise some mean to rid her from the second marriage, or in my cell there would she kill herself. Then gave I her, so tutored by my art, a sleeping potion, which so took effect as I intended, for it wrought on her the form of death. Meantime I hid Sir Romeo, that he should hither come as this dire night, to help to take her from her borrowed grave, being the time the potion's force should cease. But he which bore my letter, Friar John, was stayed by accident, and yesternight returned my letter back. Then all alone, at the prefixed hour of her waking, came I to take her from her kindred's vault, meaning to keep her closely at my cell, till I conveniently could send to Romeo. But when I came, some minute ere the time of her awakening, here untimely lay the noble Paris and trim Romeo dead. She wakes, and I entreat her come forth, and bear this work of heaven with patience. But then a noise did scare me from the tomb, and she, too desperate, would not go with me, but, as it seems, did violence on herself. All this I know, and to the marriage her nurse is privy, and if aught in this miscarried by my fault, let my old life be sacrificed some hour before his time unto the rigor of severest law, of severest law, I should say. And Prince says, we still have known thee for a holy man. Where's Romeo's man? What can he say to this? And Balthazar says, I brought my master news of Juliet's death, and then in post he came from Mantua, to the same place, to the same monument. The letter he early bid me give his father, and threatened me with death, going in the vault, if I departed not and left him there. And Prince says, give me the letter, I will look on it. And he takes Romeo's letter, and he continues saying, where's the county's page that raised the watch? Sirrah, what made your master in this place? And Page said, he came with flowers to strew his lady's grave, and bid me stand aloof, and so I did. Anon comes one with light to open the tomb, and by my master drew on him, and then I ran away to call the watch. And the prince says, this letter doth make good the friar's words, their course of love, the tidings of her death. And here he writes that he did buy a poison of a poor apothecary, and therewithal came to this vault to die and lie with Juliet. Where be these enemies? Capulet Montague, see what a scourge is laid upon your hate, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And I, for winking at your discords too, have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished. And Capulet says, O brother Montague, give me thy hand. This is my daughter's jointure, for no more can I demand. And Montague says, but I can give thee more, for I will ray her statue in pure gold, that whiles Verona by that name is known, there shall be no figure at such rate be set, as that of true and faithful Juliet. And Capulet says, as rich shall Romeo's by his ladies lie, poor sacrifices of our enmity. And the prince concludes here by saying, a glooming peace this morning with it brings, the sun for sorrow will not show his head. And go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned and some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo, and all exit. So, that is Romeo and Juliet at the entire play, and I'm going to obviously break down the scene that we just saw, and then the play as a whole. So, a lot happened in that scene. Romeo arrives, he finds Paris, tells his man to wait outside. So I'm guessing, like, when they say, like, their man, they mean, like, someone, essentially, almost like a companion of sorts. But he fights Paris, he kills Paris. Paris says, lay me in the tomb of Juliet. Romeo does, kills himself with the poison. Juliet wakes up, talks to Friar Lawrence. Friar Lawrence is scared off, so Juliet, in that time, kills herself with Romeo's dagger. So now all three are dead. Lady and Sir Capulet arrive. Sir Montague arrives. Unfortunately, his wife passed away due to, I'm guessing, as they said, the stress of Romeo's banishment. And pretty much everything is broken down. The friar confesses everything, and there's a letter that Romeo wrote to his dad at about about, I'm guessing, everything, and about Juliet and the poison that he brought and everything. And so that pretty much ends the family strife. I've, so a lot happens, and the prince, of course, is very sad about but the play as a whole, well, very interesting now that I've gotten to read the whole thing for the first time in a while. And I think actually this might be my first time reading the whole thing. And I think I mentioned that while we did read it in school, we kind of jumped around a little bit. Mostly, I guess, for for time constraints, obviously, because there's only so much time in that period, that being English class where we read it, of course. But also, because some stuff wasn't as important as others. But what a story! There's a lot of stuff that's seen in the story. A lot of love, a lot of romance, a lot of feelings and stuff like that. But is this true love? Is this truly the greatest romance story of all time? Honestly, I'd say it's kind of debatable because yes, it's written and for the main characters, that being Romeo and Juliet, to have such intense love for each other, a lot of love for each other, and for Paris to have that for Juliet. But at the same time, they barely really knew each other. They only maybe for here or in the context of the story, they've known each other only for the better part of maybe a few weeks. Maybe if and I'm probably being super generous, it's probably more like a few days. Um, definitely not even near close enough to really bond with someone and get really accustomed to them. But they professed their love and gave all kinds of feelings, and but is that really love or was it really lust? And that, I think, has been a point of debate when it comes to the story. I think the story is looked at as fondly as it is because it is Shakespeare, of course. Yeah, I keep that in mind, but also because of a lot of the language and the emotions of the characters and all the twists and turns the story he takes, including in the whole feud between the Montagues and the Capulets and Romeo and Juliet, these star-crossed lovers, not really supposed to be in love because they're because their families are at war and everything, but ultimately fall in love anyway, despite what their families think, and then that being what ultimately brings the Montagues and the Capulets together. Or so I think those elements is why this story is looked upon so fondly and why it's analyzed as much. But plus it's interest and stuff like that. But really the analysis of everything and kind of the timeline of the events when it comes to the story, I think, is where a lot of people really debate: is this truly love, or is it pretty much like a fling that got several people killed? Essentially, is that the case? But let me know what you guys think. I am happy to have read the story for you all and checked it out, and with it having such an influence in popular culture and everything, and it was bound to have some adaptations. One of the famous ones is the play West Side Story, which is pretty much in the same vein of the Romeo and Juliet had with the rival gangs and everything, and pretty much a take on that. It's had stage plays, do plays and everything, especially with stuff like Shakespeare in the Park. It's had some movie adaptations, including that famous one with Leonardo DiCaprio, which we may or may not look at for the channel. But also, yeah, just having a profound impact on popular culture, and it's understandable why. Plus, I also noted quite a bit of foreshadowing, moments where Romeo, for example, when we just read a few moments ago, Romeo has the dream that Juliet died by his hands or something along those lines. Foreshadowing like that is wow, it's almost telegraphing what could happen. But that is going to do it for this episode, this act, and for Romeo and Juliet as a play. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Romeo and Juliet, the play. Hey, your thoughts, your analysis of the events. Was it love or lust? Let me know what you guys think. For me, I feel like it's kind of in the middle. Like, like like a lot of the words they're saying may seem like very romantic, but A, they haven't known each other for a while, and B, they're pretty young. Like they're supposed to be depicted as like teenagers slash maybe young adults. Also, like as a teenager, or like when you were in a relationship. Sadly, I wasn't, because anyway, like when you're a teenager, like when you're with someone, and a lot of times you think you're gonna be together forever, but then and you grow up, you guys may drift apart, you may get into a new relationship and be like, man, I can't believe I thought we were gonna be together forever, or like, hey man, it was crazy, we thought we were gonna be together forever, but that wasn't really the case. And I think that does kind of poke its head here, and I'm pretty sure it was done on purpose, kind of to juxtapose yeah, it's kind of like a teenage, almost kind of fling, but at the same time, with how they describe each other and with how like in love they are with each other, how much of a fling can it really be? But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.